Hello everyone, Ember here, and welcome back to a new video. In this one, I'm going to be taking a look at the Many Tyranitars of GLC, as suggested by someone in the comments. So, if you have any Pokemon that you would like to see featured in this series, then do please, let me know down below. But yeah, what is GLC? For those of you who don't know, it's a single prize only, no rule box format. So sadly, that does mean no Mega Tyranitar cards. Personally, I would love to see Megas be released as like a single prize mechanic in the future. I think that would be really cool to see. But yeah, sadly, right now, no rule boxes allowed in GLC. It is singleton except for basic energy. And then the final key rule, which is super relevant for Tyranitar, is that you're only allowed one type per deck. And why that's relevant is because Tyranitar is typically printed as a dark type, and Pupitar and Larvitar are both printed as fighting types. But of course, I'm going to talk about, like how you could get one into play feasibly. But yeah, some noticeable Larvitar before we get going. The most obvious one is actually one of the more recent ones, which has 70 HP, so a lot higher than the other ones. Also has a retreat cost of 1, and also happens to be a not rare. Aside from that, it's fairly boring, so if you want a bit more flavor, you could go for Submerge, although you would be trading a lot of HP. And you can also go for Second Strike if you really wanted to. But yeah, nothing too important here, but I would say the one with 70 HP is probably the most relevant. Also, some notable Pupitar. There's one with the attack Dust Devil that does 20 damage to each non-fighting Pokemon in play. Honestly, quite nice spread damage for stage 1. So, if you're building a spread fighting type deck, then this Pupitar is quite nice. And then Crashing Bullet does 20 damage and 20 damage to each bench Pokemon, both yours and your opponent's, which can be relevant if you're trying to build around Earthquake. So, kind of cool, just thought it was worth mentioning. But yeah, getting Dark Ones out is a wee bit tricky. Now, I have suggested Piers here as just like supporter that can guarantee searching for a Pokemon, but you probably want to use other things like Skylar as well. But yeah, Peonia is kind of like your main way, I guess. Put up to 3 prize cards from your hand. Put up to 3 prize cards into your hand. Then for each prize card, you put into your hand in this way, you get to put a card from your hand face down as a prize card. So you'll take 3 prize cards, then you'll put 3 from your hand back down. You want to choose Tyranitar because then you can use Dream Ball. So Dream Ball says when you play this card you can only play this card, only if you took it as a face down prize card before you put it into your hand. So it only works from the prizes. And you get to search your deck for a Pokemon and put it onto your bench. So basically, this just allows you to cheat out a Dark type Tyranitar in a Dark type GLC deck, allowing you to essentially skip the pre evolutions. And as far as I can tell, this is like the best way or the easiest way to put Tyranitar into play. If you have any other suggestions, then please do let me know down below. But the first one I want to take a look at here is a really interesting one, which sucks because I love this guy. I really love this card a lot. But yeah, it's really difficult to play, and its ability is sadly useless because it only works when you evolve one of your other Pokemon. So yeah, this Tyranitar would be so good if there was a Dark type Pupitar or Larvitar, but sadly there's not. So it's exclusively here for its one attack, which for a whopping 5 Dark Energy, Dark Mountain does 150, and you get to discard the top 2 cards of your deck, and it does 50 more damage for each supporter card discarded in this way. So you can actually do an absolute mammoth 250, which is crazy. So a very powerful attack, very expensive. It's a very expensive move. So this would, of course, be a lot easier to pay for with this ability, but because the ability doesn't work in a Dark type GLC deck, then things get really awkward really fast. It is a very fun card though. If you're running like the Hydreigon that can accelerate any amount of dark energy from your hand as you like, then maybe it's still worth it with the Dream Ball combo. But at the same time, it's going to be a lot of effort to try and make this guy work, which again is a massive shame because I love this card, but it's very difficult to recommend when it's so difficult to make work. But yeah, very fun card though. Next up is we have a Tyranitar from the set Sun and Moon Celestial Storm. Slam is a wee bit boring. Flip 2 coins, 6 damage for each heads, whatever. Then we have Trample though, which for 4 energy does 120 damage, and for each bench Pokemon, both yours and your opponent's, keyword there, both yours and your opponent's, you get to flip a coin, and if heads, this attack does 60 damage to that Pokemon. And this attack damage isn't affected by weakness or resistance. So yeah, you can damage your own Pokemon with this. So good luck while playing this Tyranitar. But of course, if you flip mostly tails, but you flip mostly heads for your opponent's Pokemon, then this attack can be devastating. and pairs quite nicely with other spread attackers like this Weavile, for example, or, Honchkrow with Raven's Claw. You just cut off one or two heads, basically, and then Honchkrow can just come in there and sweep up. So yeah, some very fun, cool options with this Tyranitar, but it is high risk, high reward. So, very risky, and there's a better spread Tyranitar, spoiler alert. So, it's a bit of a shame, but Trample is a very fun attack if you wanted to build around it. And that Tyranitar that is better is this one. It's from the set Sun and Moon Team Up, and it has one attack that's really good. Like Bite Off would be okay, but there's no GX or EX Pokemon, so pretty useless for 4 energy, only doing 130. But yeah, Spinning Tail for 3 energy does 30 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon, which is just a lot more consistent than whatever this thing is. Like this thing, you could flip 5 heads for all of your Pokemon, then 5 tails for all of your opponents. So, this one is a more consistent way of doing spread damage. It's, I guess, a little bit more like Placid, but considering that you have to like pull off the whole Dream Ball combo, just to get this thing out into play, I would still say, it's worth it and interesting in that regard. So yeah, again, I'm noting like the same Pokemon here, but Weavile's a fun spread option. Honchkrow can clean up. So yeah, pretty fun card overall, and I would definitely recommend it if you're trying to do some crazy spread shenanigans in GLC. The next up is we have the only true legal Tyranitar in GLC, which is hilarious. But yeah, the only fighting type Tyranitar in this video has 2 attacks, Bedrock Breaker and Mountain Swing. Bedrock Breaker does 120 damage, and then you have to discard a stadium in play. So that can be good if your opponent has a very pesky stadium. It can also just be terrible, if you want to take advantage of stuff like fighting type stadiums, like Dojo, I guess, is a really good one. So that can be kind of annoying, but the offset is, of course, that you can disrupt your opponent and remove their stadium. So it's quite a nice attack overall, I would say. And then Mounting Swing for a whopping 4 energy does 250, which is crazy, really. And you have to discard the top 5 cards of your deck. And to be honest, there's not a whole lot of synergy with this, but I did think it was interesting that you could maybe pair this up with like Single Strike Lycanroc to do 80 damage, and then 10 more for each Single Strike Pokemon in your discard pile. And then, of course, you could also try it with Machamp, which does 20 damage for each fighting Pokemon in your discard pile. So basically, you try and use Tyranitar in the early game, and then, Machamp and Lycanroc in the mid to late game, and just try and bin loads of fighting type Pokemon. Could work, maybe, but, 4 energy is a lot. I think like B is probably your best option for accelerating energy here, but, it's a lot of energy. It is a lot of damage, though. Like 250 is very respectable. It's going to take out things like Wailord, so I do like this card a lot. I think it's very fun, a lot of flavor to it. But, it's just like, how are you getting the 4 energy on there? Because, it's fighting types. Pretty hard to get energy into fighting types. But, it's a cool card, though. Definitely a thumbs up from me. Then we have a one from Sword and Shield Pokemon GO. Has 2 pretty interesting moves, actually. Raging Crash for a double colorless does 10 damage for each damage counter on all your benched Pokemon. And I know it's been brought up a lot in this video already, but this Weavile does do 60 damage to each Pokemon that has an ability. So if you really wanted to, you could use a Weavile to damage all like your tanky Pokemon that have abilities, like not the Spiritomb. Like Spiritomb would be a terrible example, so you would KO your own Spiritomb. But 60 damage to Pokemon with decent HP, and then Raging Crash could just one-hit KO something. So, that's kind of cool. Or, you could do a more tame approach with things like Spiritomb and like slowly build up damage on the bench if you really wanted to. Then we also have the attack Earthquake, which does 180 and then 20 damage to each of your own bench Pokemon. So I guess like there is a bit of synergy between Earthquake and Raging Crash, but you probably don't want to rely on them too much. Like Earthquake is cool because it can take out a stage 2, for example, in one hit, and then sets up Raging Crash to do the same later on in the game. But you don't really want to be doing too much damage to your own Pokemon as well. Still a very cool Tyranitar, though. I would say it's a bit less flavorsome than this one, for example, but, still pretty cool. Then we have the last one in this video, which is going to be the one from Paldea Evolved. Very cool Tyranitar. Recently picked up one of these for my own deck. Very, very strong attacks as well. Route doing 30 damage, and then 30 more damage for each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. Quite devastating. And then Dread Mountain, very cool attack name. For just 2 Dark Energy, does whopping 230, but you do have to discard the top 4 cards of your deck. Now, there is some synergy with other Dark Pokemon that do more damage for each Pokemon in your discard pile, like the Zoroark from the Zoroark GLC video that I did. There's also, I believe, a Spiritomb that interacts with the discard pile. There's a lot of nice options for Dark decks, but it's just a case of, do you want to go through all the steps just to get this guy out into play, I personally would say it's worth it. I think it's cool enough, and especially to play that amazing art rare on the right here. But aside from that, it's just what you really want from a GLC deck. Personally, I think it's worth it. I think it's cool, but I can definitely see not everyone wants to go through the steps to get Dream Ball, and stuff like that. So, it's a bit difficult, but I really do hope that we see a Dark type Pupitar or Larvitar in the future. Fingers crossed. I don't think we will really, but maybe if they release a set where they swap around the types or something, that'd be really cool to see. But yeah. Thank you for watching though. I do a new set review for GLC with each new release, so do subscribe if you're interested in being updated. This is now a series to stay though, so let me know which Pokemon you would like to see. There is a list, but getting through them, and a playlist has indeed been made. And if you want to dive into the competitive side, Omnipoke and the format creator Tricky Jim have both done fantastic videos and guides for each type. But yeah, let me know down below if there's any other ways to get Tyranitar out into play. Do you think you'll be playing it yourself? And yeah, thank you for watching.